fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Time to wrap up another season of Just Send It action. Welcome to SimSpeed TV for your Tuesday night entertainment. I'm Lockie Mansell. Welcome to Season 4, Week 12 of the Just Send It iRacing series. Joining me in commentary tonight is Bo Albert. And Bo, to conclude this fourth season of Just Send It, we're headed to Mount Panorama for the first time since Season 2, and we're headed there in the Ferrari 488 GT3 car.
Absolutely, and it's been a while, like you said, since we've been to Bathurst, so it is great to be back, of course. This is one of the homes of Just Send It. One of the first races we ever ran took place here, and I'm sure plenty of drivers are very, very excited to dig back into this circuit, because we've got a slightly reversed format, of course. We're in a GT3 car tonight, so that brings back a bit of Bathurst 12-hour vibes, but the issue is, we're not going from the night to the day, we're going from the day back to the night.
Very much looking forward to this, racing into the sunset at Mount Panorama. And we're back to our traditional race format for Just Send It. So we had a bit of a diversion last week where we had that 22-lap race around Barcelona with the Formula 3 cars, but we're back to a time-certain 40-minute race tonight. As always, there will be a random number of safety cars between 0 and 2. And we are expecting pit stops to be made by all of our participants throughout this race as well. But great to be back here at Mount Panorama. And of course, the Ferrari 488 GT3 cars that we've seen racing in real life in the Bathurst 12-hour at the mountain over the years as well.
Yes, of course. It's had a bit of success as well. Well, not so much the 488, but the 458, which was the predecessor to this particular car, did have a fair bit of success around the Bathurst 12-hour. And hopefully the 488 will be able to replicate that in the real world tonight. But in regards to how it's going to go, I think Ferrari will definitely be winning here and Just Send It. But of course, GT3 cars, they've got traction control, they've got ABS. They're designed to be very, very friendly to the driver so that, you know, they're not sliding around too much. It's meant to be as controlled as possible. And for the drivers to really get the speed out of this Ferrari, especially around Bathurst, where there's so many high speed sections, big braking zones and traction points, the drivers have to be able to learn how to use the traction control efficiently, because a lot of people have the concepts that when it comes to putting the power on with a car with traction control, you just put your foot to the floor and off you go. That's just not true. And for these drivers, learning how to manage that traction control is critical. The same goes with ABS. You cannot afford to be heavy-footed. It's about finesse. It's about using very, very precise inputs.
Indeed, traction control minimises the wheel spin, but it doesn't completely stop the wheel spinning altogether. And it doesn't matter how many electronics you might have, but there is something called simple physics. And if you come into a corner too hot or you try and get on the power too hard too early, no amount of electronics is going to save you. Let's have a look at the unofficial championship points. This is based on the point system that I've been running in the background right throughout the season. And the news coming into tonight's 12th and final week of this season is that Job Stewart has already wrapped up the unofficial championship because he has a lead of more than 150 points, which is the number of points that I've decided to award for race wins in the Just Send It series. Cooper Webster, who has been a prominent figure at the top of the Just Send It timesheets in many events. He's second. The consistent Jordan Mulak sitting in third position on the points table ahead of Blake Purdy, young Kobe Williams in fifth position, Jay Cool, Jackson Suzlin Harlow, Jonathan Bykoff, James Golding and Steve Jansen rounding out your top 10. So that's the unofficial championship. Now let's take a look at your official starting order. And it's Jordan Caruso, who we've seen running in at the V8 Scott Series with Ethan Griggolt for the Evolution Racing team on pole position ahead of Job Stewart, back then to Cody Bircher in third, James Golding, Ryan Wood, Blake Purdy, Mitchell McLeod, Emerson Harvey, Marcello Rivera, and one of our real-life racing stars, Cooper Murray from the Porsche Carrera Cup Series, rounding out your top 10.
And then kicking things off from 11th, we go back to Jack Lemon. Kobe Williams starting from 12th. A bit of a disappointing start there for Cooper Webster. Down in position number 13. Look for him to move through the order. Zach Bates kicks things off from position number 14 with Thomas Hins, Mario Vartanian, your top 16. Jay Cool, Matt Morris, Ryan Shooter, and Robert Crisdale are the top 20, as all the cars are just about lined up on Conrod Straight. It's going to be a rolling start for this one, and they're already about to get moving here, Lockie.
Looking forward to these GT3 cars rolling into action as we continue to run down through the rest of the grid. Cooper Webster, that'd be one of his worst qualifying performances because he's actually had the most pole positions in the just ended series. Lachlan Beneath back in 21st position ahead of Aaron Hintle, Mitchell McIntyre. Cooper Allen, another Formula Ford racer, out of 24th position ahead of Ben Rothberg, Josh Haynes, Cooper Johnston, David Hueso, Dylan Golson, who has had a lot of success at Bathurst in real life in the Toyota 86 series there, just inside the top 30. And as we head back down to 40th position, and Josh Drake, and we'll run through the rest of the field. Jordan Mulak only just purchased the Ferrari, but we are underway. Week 12, Season 4 of the Just Ended iRacing series is go here at Mount Panorama. And looks like a pretty good start from our pole sitter as they head into Hill Corner and up onto Mountain Straight for the first time.
Oh, we do have a little bit of carnage though. Emerson Harvey, position number 8, spun around, and one of the cars up and over. It's one of the Mark 1 Esports cars, I believe. Big amounts of chaos here on Mountain Straight on lap number 1. It's everybody's worst nightmare. You can see the visibility already very, very tough, and a lot of cars unsighted there. As we look higher up the grid, we saw Cooper Webster there in a big fight, trying to get past some of our other drivers and make his way into the top 10. But as the drivers snake their way up towards the top of the mountain for the first time, it is still Jordan Caruso leading from Job Stewart and Cody Bircher. Those top 3 have really skipped away from 4th place James Golding. Oh, big crash! Big crash. Ryan Wood at the top of the mountain. Cars are gone flying. One up and over. Marcello Rivera. I think Cooper Webster may be involved in that as well. But that is a monumental accident at one of the points on the circuit that really is blind.
So much damage. They're certainly not holding back in Just Send It tonight. So we've had a couple of separate incidents on the opening lap, and they're still piling up, stacking into one another, coming over Reid Park at the top of Mount Panorama. That's Ryan Wood, who's been absolutely centre punched just as they come through the section that's affectionately known as the Gumtree. And I'll tell you what, the drivers at the front of the field, they'll be very happy with how all of that has played out, because they've now extended a massive margin over the rest of the field. Jordan Caruso, your race leader, but here comes Job Stewart. The Pursuit Sim Racing car ranges up alongside and will just about move through. Yes, he will, to take the lead in the braking zone at the chase.
Fantastic move there. The long way around for Job Stewart. Takes over very, very quickly, but Jordan Caruso very, very quick in qualifying. 0.2 of a second faster than the Pursuit Sim Racing Ferrari. So expect him to come back with quite an answer in the next few laps. He's not going to be too keen to sit behind for all this race. So Jordan Caruso and Cody Bircher is the third car in this train as well, as we go back and look at a big battle for a position number 17 on the track that involves Ryan Shooter. You can see side by side in the background through the final corner. They are fighting one another very, very violently and viciously as they make their way down towards Held Corner. One of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit. Very late on the brake by the DHL car. They specialize in postage, but so does Dylan Goulson.
Yeah, just sending it up the inside. As mentioned, Dylan Golson, we've seen having some race victories in the Toyota 86 series at Mount Panorama in the past, so I would dearly love to add to his tally in the virtual world. It's still on for the race lead here. Jordan Caruso, having lost the lead to Job Stewart, now finds himself fending off very hard-charging Cody Bircher, who we've seen have a number of race victories in the Just Send It series. Just having a look at the timings to see some of the drivers who've been involved in the first lap pandemonium. Jackson Suzlin Harlow was one of the drivers involved in that contretemps on the first lap. Lachlan Beneath was caught up in it as well. Zach Bates and also Jordan Mulak, one of our front-running drivers in terms of the championship. Cooper Murray was involved. And now we've got Aaron Shields in the Jägermeister car rotated at the cutting as well. And I'd suggest that he's probably done this all on his own, Bo. Yes, he has. He's just come in a little bit too hot and just manages to slow the car down before lightly brushing the wall with the back of the car. But then he's been collected by another one of the cars coming through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of those situations where wrong place, wrong time, and obviously a lot of people unsighted as well. So not the best news there for those drivers. But of course, it is just send it, and I think all these drivers come in with the expectations that there's going to be a couple of incidents as well. Of course, we don't know if there's going to be a safety car in this race as well. Always the chance of either 0, 1, or even 2 in this race, and that's another factor these drivers will have to weigh up when it comes to race strategy and how they're attacking on the circuit as well. So for those drivers that were involved in a lap 1 incident, there's no point just giving up, because there is every chance they can make some easy positions back under a safety car.
Well, there were no safety cars last week, so if I was a betting man, Bo, I'd say that we might have one at some stage this week. I'll tell you what, if it was a real-life race, we'd absolutely be under safety car conditions right now, because there are damaged cars strewn all over the circuit. Yeah, or even a red flag, that's true. But like you say, the pit strategy, it will be interesting to see how that plays out. As we've seen in the past in Just Send It, if there is a safety car, you want to make sure that you've got your pit stop out of the way before the safety car is deployed. Otherwise, you get trapped and you are at a big disadvantage compared to everybody who has already done their pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. How many times have we seen the safety car deciding these races and just send it? Of course, one driver gets a little bit caught out. Their race is just about done, or at least not done, but they're in a very bad spot, often in a lot of traffic as well. So that's something these drivers, especially those who are fighting for the race win today and really want the maximum position possible, they're going to be fighting extremely hard for. As we go back and have a little bit of a look at James Golding, who has Blake Purdy right behind. But if we go just a little bit further back again, Cohen Attard, Mitch McLeod, and Cooper Webster really bunching up now as they head down the Conrod Straight. And of course, this is where the cars will be hitting the highest speed around the entire lap. Cooper Webster, a bit of damage to the front of his Ferrari, so he won't be doing much attacking. Mitch McLeod, well, he might do a little bit of attacking. Why not on Cohen Attard? Let's go side by side at 268 kilometers an hour through the chase. And that is a great move by Mitch McLeod. Immediately on the defensive goes Cohen Attard from Cooper Webster. Too little, too late. Webster and McLeod both through on Attard.
And that just goes to show you the effective of the slipstream on Conrod Straight, because both McLeod and Webster were able to tow their way past Cohen Attard by the time they headed into the chase. So it just goes to show how effective that hole is being punched in the air by the preceding car. Both McLeod and Webster executing fairly comfortable manoeuvres there. And James Golding comes into the pits, the first of our front runners to dive in. Kobe Williams coming in for a pit stop as well. We've still got 33 and a half minutes to go. So a couple of drivers electing to take early pit stops. And I'll tell you what, it's getting pretty dark at Mount Panorama now as well, Bo, and you can really see the headlights on these cars starting to shine very brightly. Tell you what, it's a good thing that we've got those LED position indicators in the windscreens of the cars, so that all of our virtual spectators around the Mount Panorama circuit know what place everybody's running in.
Absolutely, it's 8:05 here at Mount Panorama, so it's getting very, very close to dark. And as the race falls, or the checkered flag falls at 22, these cars are going to be well and truly baked in the night time here at Mount Panorama, and those headlights will be getting a workout, because another thing is this circuit doesn't have the best track lighting as well. So there are a lot of places, especially the top of the mountain, where it's going to be extremely dark, and the drivers are going to be almost relying purely on instinct and maybe the 50, 100 meters they can see with the headlights as well. Beyond that, it is pure darkness. And this is where we're really going to see the drivers who know this circuit inside and out. That's where they're going to come to the fore. But we go back to Mitch McLeod and Cooper Webster, because Cooper is a lot closer to Mitch this time. He got past Cohen on the last lap. Can he get past Mitch on this lap? The damage to the Altus Esports Ferrari not hampering him too much, and closing on the definitely not a FedEx liveried car of Mitch McLeod right underneath the rear wing. They will go. Look how close. It's going to be a battle of the last breakers, and Cooper Webster coming out on top. All of the curb used, but the position is made. The job is done.
He's flying at the moment. Cooper Webster had a fairly lacklustre by his standards qualifying performance, but he's making up for it now. But he decides to take the early pit stop as well, dives into the lane in the Altus Esports Ferrari to get his pit stop out of the way. The other thing that we know that happens when it gets dark at Mount Panorama is that you do tend to get some wildlife congregating around the circuit, so the drivers will have to be aware of any virtual kangaroos that might jump out onto the racetrack as well. We've seen it before in the rising sun at Mount Panorama in the Bathurst 12 hour that the wildlife can cause havoc if they jump onto the racetrack in the wrong position. So the drivers will be hoping that there's no such issues tonight.
Absolutely, of course. You never know with Mount Panorama when good old Skip here is going to make his appearance, but so far he's been fairly good when it comes to iRacing. He hasn't made too many appearances himself, and it's a good thing he doesn't make any appearances at Turn 2, or else I would take care of him myself. But at the moment, for your top three, they've just started to spread out a little bit and just gap one another. So all these drivers just beginning to get in clear air and just focus on their own jobs. But it is interesting to see that we're now almost 11 minutes into this race, and none of our top three have elected to come into the pits, because one of the things was Ivan Vantiago has had an absolute nightmare at turn number 2, taking inspiration from myself, backs it into the wall. We'll get a Just Send It replay up on screen. Is he fighting side by side for 22nd place here? Gets very, very close here, and what happens here? He just gets, he runs out of road just a little bit. He just tried to squeeze the car on the outside, and sadly, contact was made and ended up with Ivan facing the wrong way.
And that was James Golding, who was on his outside heading into Griffin's Bend. Golding was actually very lucky not to get tangled up in that incident. The key thing here is that James Golding, currently in 17th position, he's the highest placed driver who's done a pit stop. So if the safety car was to come out now, he'd be in a good position. But the problem with the early pit stop is it does leave you stuck in traffic, and that's the problem that James Golding is encountering at the moment. And we've got dramas here for our third place driver. That's Cody Bircher. He has slowed down dramatically at pit entry, so problems. I wonder if that's a hardware issue for Cody Bircher, because his car's just ground to a halt at pit entry.
Well, we're having a look now. You can see coming into the final section of the circuit, and he's just stopped the car. It's not a hardware issue at all. He's just pulled the car off, did all these downshifts, pulled it into neutral, and pulled it off the circuit, and has now left the server as well. So hopefully everything is okay with Cody, and there's no reason to jump off the sim too quickly. But otherwise, that is a disappointment for him. But what it now does is promote Mitch McLeod up into position at number 3, as Blake Purdy is now taking his pit stop. So good job from Mitch McLeod to work his way up the order. But at the moment, Matt Morris going the wrong direction. Jay Cool gets past him, and Morris almost says hello through the mid-corner at Griffin's Bend. And they're going to make a bit of a run now towards the cutting and see how we go. Almost side by side. Not a place you want to go side by side. And eventually they sort themselves out single file.
Pretty nervous moment there. Jake Cool, one of our championship front runners, currently sitting in 6th in the points coming into tonight's Just Send It round. Pretty action-packed, isn't it? Pretty frenetic within the mid-pack. Now, this is key here. So, in fact, there's been a change of position. So, Cooper Webster has moved ahead of James Golding. So, that's a change for position among cars that have already done pit stops. So, Cooper Webster now assumes that position of being, well, it'll be the second highest placed car that's done a pit stop, because Blake Purdy's come into the pits and taken his stop and made it out ahead of both Cooper Webster and James Golding, as we ride on board with 14th place Sam Dunstall. And we're hearing that, was it James Golding, I think, who made contact with the wall at some point? It was Dunstall who brushed the wall there at Reid Park. Pretty lucky to get away with that one.
Oh, and something may have just happened to James Golding. We'll get another replay up on screen. As you can see, in a lot of traffic heading down the hill, gets a little bit loose, a bit squirrely, and all of a sudden he finds himself with a very damaged car, and then bang! One of the cars behind unsighted, and make that 2 unsighted. Make that almost 3 unsighted cars, sadly piling into the side of James Golding, and that is more than enough to say goodnight to that car, unfortunately.
Yeah, we saw Con Ledgar having a similar incident at the Bathurst 12 hour in that section of the circuit earlier this year as well. So James Golding's fallen into the trap, and he's decided to get a tow back to the pits. So night done, unfortunately, for James Golding. He's our overall race leaders at the moment. Jordan Caruso is the leader of the race, ahead of Mitchell McLeod at this stage. More cars coming into the pits. So Job Stewart's come down pit lane for his pit stop and rejoined ahead of Blake Purdy. So Job Stewart, now the best placed of the drivers, who has taken a pit stop with 26.5 minutes remaining on the clock.
Yes, indeed. But like you said, you take the early pit stop and you come out in a lot of traffic. And, well, Job is finding that out the hard way. He's got Cohen Attard and Eddie Beswick just in front of him, and he's not finding an easy way past. And when you get to the top of the mountain, this is the part of the circuit, especially in GT cars, or at least typically in GT cars, there is no way through it. It's all single line. I say typically because Job Stewart is a fighter. He's going to think about it up the inside. But you go for a move like that, and you end up in quite a plane crash of an accident. Not a car crash, an absolute plane crash with the heights and the speeds involved around the top of the Mount Panorama circuit. You can see he just has to hold his line, hold his pace. Just follow Cohen Attard through, and once they get out of Forest Elbow, see flashing the lights, he is not happy at all to be stuck in this traffic. Because of course, the second thing is that the more time that Job Stewart spends stuck behind the car in front, the more time for Jordan Caruso, who is now pulling into pit lane, has to extend the lead. And the gap between those two was extremely close. So Job Stewart, he has a reason to flash these headlights, because he may or may not have just lost this race lead by getting stuck in traffic by 1 lap.
And the thing there is that Cohen Attard was a lap down, so that was not actually a battle for position, as we see our 2 race leaders coming into the pits, Jordan Caruso and Mitchell McLeod, both boxing in their respective Ferrari. So the key thing here will be, when do they come out relative to Job Stewart, who is still stuck there behind Ezzy Beswick. In fact, everybody's now coming into the pits among our top runners. The only cars that are not yet pitted, Mitchell McIntyre, who goes through to take the lead, and Matt Morris. They've both elected to stay on the racetrack for an extra lap.
And you can see there the pit exit. That was all Jordan Caruso. He has the race lead. Of course, Job Stewart with much better pace, taking the usual racing line, not having to come from a 60km/h pit lane, and much better speed down Mountain Straight. So Jordan Caruso gets the race lead, but unfortunately for him, he does not have a broken slipstream, and Job Stewart is right behind him for this race lead. So these two are going to have quite a fight to the end of the race, because they are well and truly clear of anybody else in this little opening part of the pack, because Blake Purdy, who is one of our next drivers in a competitive spot, is quite some way back as the car has stopped. Matt Morris at the top of the hill, and it's a very tricky place to rejoin up there.
In the Velocity Motorsport magazine, Ferrari. And the safety car has been called, has it? Yes. So safety car comes out with 24 minutes to go while we wait for the safety car to come out of pit lane and pick up our race leader. Here's a look at what happened to Matt Morris. Bang! Hard into the fence at the gum tree, and ends up, like you say there, Bo, parked in a very awkward position on top of the mountain and not really able to rejoin the racetrack without pulling right out into the oncoming traffic.
No, and that was Ruben Goodall who got involved there. And if we go on board with him, you'll see just how bad it was for Ruben. Had almost nowhere to go, got collected very, very viciously, and unfortunately he's out of this race as well. But very lucky timing for some of our race leaders with the safety car coming out when it did, because of course Jordan Caruso, if he went 1 lap longer, he would have got caught out by the safety car. So for Caruso especially, very lucky, but also Job Stewart, only a lap and a half clear of when the safety car came out. So a couple of our race leaders playing a little bit risky with when the safety car was going to get called, or if the safety car got called, and indeed it does, almost spot on halfway into this race.
And what this safety car does as well, Bo, is it gets some of the drivers that were involved in crashes earlier in the race back into the game. So drivers like Jackson Suzlin Harlow and Jordan Mulak, who we saw sustaining damage on the first lap, it now basically allows them to make up all of the time that they lost by having to pit for repairs earlier in the race. So I reckon Jackson Suzlin Harlow, especially, watch out for him. We know just how fast he is. He's currently in 19th position, but he'll be on the charge when the race resumes.
Absolutely, he will be, and we'll see how Jackson goes. Should be very, very quick and deep. That is a lot of cars to pass, and he's not going to have too much time to do it. I expect when the race goes green flag again, we're going to be looking at around 17 to 16 minutes remaining. So he's going to have to make some moves very, very quick, but if anyone can make some passes in a short amount of time, we know Jackson Susan Harlow definitely can.
So let's have a look at your race order behind the safety car. Mitchell McIntyre is your race leader, but he's yet to pit, so he's been trapped behind the safety car. He will have to come into the pits. Jordan Caruso's second. He'll be your effective race leader when we get things back underway. Job Stewart third, ahead of Cooper Johnston, who's also yet to pit. Then it's Blake Purdy, Mitchell McLeod, Cooper Webster, Dylan Golson, and Adam Camprioli rounding out your top 9, with Kobe Williams in 10th position at this spot. Drivers to watch a bit further down the order. I've already pointed out Jackson Suzlin Harlow and Jordan Mulak. Lachlan Naif would be another one to watch out for. He's down in 22nd position at the moment. And also Thomas Hinds, very experienced sim racer, down in 29th position. No doubt he'll be on the charge when racing resumes as well.
It just shows what a chaotic race it has been, doesn't it? Because, of course, so many of these big names who we expect to be fighting at the very front of the field or challenging for top 5s, top 10s, have been scattered all throughout the field. And you've got some different names in different places. Of course, hasn't pitted yet, but it's great to see Mitchell McIntyre up there. Cooper Johnstone having a very good run in the top 5 as well. Dylan Goulson and a couple of others also in the top 10 who are usually, they're very, very competitive, but we wouldn't quite see them at the very front of the field, but really putting on a show tonight and are getting some great results as things stand, but there is still a long way to go. But definitely a chaotic race in the first half here at Mount Panorama, and I don't think this second half of the race is going to be any more quiet.
No, and like you say, with all of those big names scattered through the field, it's going to make it entertaining for us when we get the racing back underway, because they're going to have to pass cars, they're going to have to just send it to make up positions, as we see some of those back markers going around the safety car to get themselves back onto the lead lap. So for those not familiar with how the safety car protocol works in iRacing, when the safety car is called, the pit lane entry closes when the safety car is first deployed. Once the field is formed up behind the safety car, the pit entry then opens to allow those drivers who want to pit to be able to do so. So the safety car stays on the circuit for 2 laps in total, which means that we'll do 1 more lap under caution, and then we'll get a resumption next time around with, like you say, Bo, probably around 16 minutes remaining on the clock.
And I know it's called the safety car, but we have just had a very unsafety car, because there has been an incident around the circuit, and sadly it involves Matt Morris once again, who, when the caution came out, was a car who had already found himself in the wall. And at the top of the hill, the visibility, of course, just very, very poor. And Dan Hall, a good friend of many of us in the sim racing community, sadly just unsighted and clipped the back of Matt Morris and sent him extremely hard into the wall at the top of the hill. So Matt Morris absolutely having a day to forget.
It's always very embarrassing to crash under the safety car, as we see that Cooper Johnson has come into the pits, but Mitchell McIntyre's elected to stay out here and run the gauntlet. So he's going to stay at the head of the field and probably do his pit stop under green flag conditions when racing resumes. Probably not the ideal strategy, but he will get the opportunity to race at the front of the field and go wheel to wheel with some of the front runners.
Well, absolutely. And for some of these drivers, that is a great experience, because the only time you learn is when you're competing against people who are better than you. You don't often learn when you're beating, drivers who you can beat very considerably. So for Mitchell McIntyre, of course, not often usually leading laps and just ended. He very much could become a very big name in the future. But right now, leading up the front of the field is new to him. And he's around guys like Jordan Caruso, Job Stewart. You got Cooper Webster, Blake Purdy, all those drivers that have so much experience at the front of Just Send It. He's going to be able to soak all that up. And maybe for next season, Just Send It could get some great results.
So while we're under this safety car, good opportunity, I think, for us just to talk about some of the other things that are going on in the sim racing world at the moment. I know that you've been very active with your YouTube channel and Twitch feed, Bo, and one of the things that I've very much enjoyed watching have been your reviews of the Porsche Esports Super Cup rounds. And of course, the next round of the Porsche Esports Super Cup is coming up this weekend. And the big question, Josh Rogers, the Aussie, he's won the last 2 feature races in a row. Can he make it a hat trick?
It's going to be very, very tough, isn't it? Of course, there's some extreme competition, especially from MSI Esports and Alejandro Sanchez. You've also, of course, got championship leader for Red Bull Racing Esports and Sebastian Job. It's going to be tough, but of course, we all know just the capabilities of Rogers, what he's able to do. And I know he has been spending a lot of time in the Porsche Cup car over the last few weeks. Of course, he's always driving the Porsche Cup car, but usually he's got a couple of other things going on in the background as well. But these last few weeks, he's really been dialed into that Porsche Cup car and nothing else. So expect him to be strong. Of course, Spa-Francorchamps, a very fast circuit, should suit him very well. But with Spa, we always know there's just a little bit of chaos there as well. And there's plenty of overtaking opportunities, so nobody is safe in that field.
And one of the other series that we like to focus on, looking at the domestic landscape, a series that you can watch here on the SimSpeed TV network, V8 Scops, the V8 Supercars Online Premier Series. The first 2 Endurance Cup rounds done and dusted. We had the Imola 500 on the weekend. What did you make of that race?
It was a bit of a chaotic race, wasn't it? There was a lot going on. Of course, no safety cars until the very end of the race really sort of threw things around for a lot of drivers. We saw a lot of teams out of position, but that 77 Trans-Tasman racing car, Madison down, you've got Dane Warren. That's a scary combination, and for the other drivers, it proved scary. No one was able to really challenge them on a consistent basis over the entire 102 laps at Imola, and they thoroughly deserved the win. And for the rest of the podium, Forza Nabi, great effort for him as well to extend his championship lead.
So the big race, the Bathurst 1000 for the V8 Supercars Online Premier Series coming up in just under 3 weeks' time, and that's a massive 2-day broadcast on the SimSpeed TV network, with qualifying and the shootout on Saturday. Potentially some support races, which we look forward to announcing soon as well. And then the big one, 161 laps around the mountain on the Sunday. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But here in Just Send It, the news is that the safety car is in pit lane. And my goodness gracious me, who was that flying off the road and somersaulting into the stratosphere in the chase? My goodness gracious me.
Ruben Goodall. That's all I've got. That's all I've got. He has been removed from the server, but that was one way to end your season. But who is going to be able to end the season on a high? Mitchell McIntyre going to lead the field from green. But I'm going to let you take over, Lockie, because I'm not quite sure what I've just witnessed.
No, I'm not either, but back underway with just under 15 minutes remaining on the clock here in Just Send It. Mitchell McIntyre leads the field away, but yet to take his pit stop. Jordan Caruso and Job Stewart expects them to resume their battle now. Blake Purdy's back in the game. Mitchell McLeod's been quick all night. We know how fast Cooper Webster is, and then watch out for some of the drivers charging from a bit further down the order. Jackson Suzlin-Harlow, Jordan Mulak, Lachlan Manif, all of those drivers will be on the charge. We're right on board with Cooper Webster. He's tucked into the draft of Mitchell McLeod as they negotiate their way through Griffin's Bend on this first lap after the safety car restart.
We are looking at about 8 laps to go in this race, so it's going to come in thick and fast are our results. Jordan Caruso hunting the back of Mitchell McIntyre over the top of the hill. Job Stewart, Blake Purdy, Cooper Webster, and Mitchell McLeod is your order. And you might notice that Mitchell McLeod and Cooper Webster are in a different order. So Cooper Webster with a great move at the cutting all came about because Mitch just gave a little bit too much room, got high and wide through the cutting, and could not grip the corner. You're going to see it here. Just look for Cooper just to show the nose a little bit, not commit to the move. Mitchell gives him room, and then just on that cambered section of the track, can't steer the car. And Cooper, thank you very much.
That's similar to the mistake that Scott McLaughlin made in 2014 at the Bathurst 1000, where he just gave a bit too much room to Shane Van Gisbergen and slapped the wall. Fortunately for McLeod, he didn't actually make contact with the wall on that occasion, but he did run a bit wide and allowed Cooper Webster up the inside. So Webster up to position number 5. Next man on his hit list will be Blake Purdy. Cooper Webster, as mentioned, the most successful driver in the Just Send It series with 12 race victories. He'll be looking for lucky 13 tonight, but there's some quality drivers that he'll have to try and get past, including Job Stewart, our champion-elect for Season 4 of Just Send It, and Jordan Caruso, who's never won a race in the Just Send It series and would dearly love to chalk up his maiden victory tonight as Webster goes down the inside of another one. That's a move on Blake Purdy. That's P4 for the Altus Esports driver.
If there is going to be a finale for Just Send It, we are under lights in GT cars at Mount Panorama. You've got some of the most competitive drivers in this series, neck. Caruso is hunting the back of Mitchell McIntyre right now, but not going to be able to do anything unless it's a big dive at Griffin's Bend. He half thinks about it. He's not quite there. The room is given, and McIntyre is all too nice. They're going to go side by side towards the cutting, perhaps, and you can see McIntyre backs out. Job Stewart thinks about the outside, but that is a long way around there. And for Jordan Caruso, don't look in those mirrors, just run.
Well, that's a valuable spot gain there for Jordan Caruso because he's now put Mitchell McIntyre between himself and Job Stewart. So he's got a bit of a buffer. He's got one car between himself and the main car that he'll be battling against for the win. And that has compromised Job Stewart. Look at the time that he's losing across the top of the mountain while he's stuck behind McIntyre, and it's allowing the next train of cars of Webster, Purdy and McLeod all to catch up. Jackson Suzlin-Harlow, he was 14th at the race start. He's already up to 10th. So in the space for lap and a half, he's made up 4 positions. He started from the back of the grid. He was involved in a crash on lap 1, and still Jackson Suslin-Harlow has managed to work his way into the top 10.
Absolutely flying. If you want to know where he started, it was 52nd, so make that 42 spots gained in this race. We go back up to the front though, because Job Stewart is just trying to hunt the back of Mitchell McIntyre, and he has to do it sometime soon to have any chance of going with Jordan Caruso. It's up the inside, late on the brakes. Job done. Next person to try and get past McIntyre goes to Cooper Webster. What can he do? Can he be any challenge to the race win in tonight's race? But, it's a huge dive from Cooper Webster. Job done. And now, some of the most successful or fastest drivers in Australian GT cars right now. Caruso. You've got the driver of Job Stewart and Cooper Webster. 1, 2, 3. 10 minutes on the clock. It's darkness in Mount Panorama. Game on.
And you want Mitchell McIntyre, he's not disgracing himself here. He hasn't quite had the pace to keep those outright front runners at bay, but he's not exactly holding them up, and he's being able to run at a similar pace to them. So good stuff from Mitchell McIntyre. Unfortunately, we believe that he's going to have to make a pit stop at some stage. And here we go, another move here. This is Mitchell McLeod up the inside of Blake Purdy into Griffin's Bend and gets the job done. So Mitchell McLeod up to 5th position with that passing manoeuvre.
Absolutely a great move there, and we have a couple more trains as Jackson Suslin-Harlow up the inside massively on Andy Carey, so he now inherits 9th place, 43 spots gained. He finds himself in a big train with Jay Cool and Kobe Williams ahead as well. So plenty of trains happening here at Mount Panorama. We're looking at Mitchell McLeod, looking back at Blake Purdy, and you can see just the speed and the elevation change here at Bathurst. Now we just fall and dip down the hill through the winding S's to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left again. It's a winding section of circuit, and Purdy with a great run. Does he think about it at Forest Elbow? He definitely thought about it. He just didn't commit.
So inside the final 9 minutes, and we're set for an absolute blockbuster finish here as we see Jay Cool and Jackson Suslin-Harlow dicing for position, 8th and 9th spots respectively. Suslin-Harlow continuing his march forward. Some of the other drivers that we checked in with, Jordan Mulak, he's up to 12th. Lachlan Manif was outside the top 20, but has worked his way up to 15th. So both those drivers making some good progress up the order at the moment. But it's Caruso, Stewart and Webster just over a second separating 3 of the biggest talents in sim racing, and contact on the exit of the chase. That's Mitchell McLeod and Blake Purdy once again battling it out, and this time swapping paint as well as swapping positions. And another move happening down the inside. Jackson Suslin-Harlow heading into Murray's corner.
Absolutely, it's all getting all kinds of feist in. What you're going to see here is almost a bit of a crossover move attempting to happen as Blake Purdy goes up the inside. McLeod goes for the inside, cuts over too soon, and just picks up the rear of Blake Purdy. Both will play on, but definitely a little bit of damage potentially to both of those cars. And unfortunate for them, as you can see, Job Stewart still up in 2nd place. Last lap around, 0.2 of a second faster than race leader. The only issue for him was Cooper Webster was 0.2 faster than him as well.
Yeah, so Job Stewart, he was thinking about attack on the back of Jordan Caruso, but now the focus is very much going to be on his rearview mirror, because he'll see those bright headlights of Cooper Webster, the Altus Esports car, ranging up behind him. So 3 of the powerhouse teams of sim racing, Jordan Caruso for the Evolution Racing team, Job Stewart for Pursuit Sim Racing, and Cooper Webster for Altus Esports doing battle here. And they've now pulled 2.7 seconds to the good of Mitchell McIntyre, who's still out on the circuit. Must be getting very low on fuel at this point, you would imagine, and would be due a pit stop very, very soon.
I just wonder how much he's attempted to fuel save over the entire race, whether he's gone for a bit of a no stop. I don't know how viable that is or how possible that is, but nonetheless, it is odd to see him continuing to stay on track for so long, as I'm seeing Mitch McLeod dropping down the order. And
that's because he's in the fence at Forest Elbow.
Oh boy, and that was a big hit as well. And of course, we saw Purdy and McLeod coming to grief on the earlier lap at the chase. And sadly, it's round 2.
Yep, so that's return serve there from Blake Purdy. We saw them, like you say, making contact at the chase. So down into Forest Elbow. Oh, wow. I don't really think Mitchell McLeod was doing anything wrong there. So Blake Purdy just getting into the back of McLeod, who comes off second best and ends up getting fired into the fence.
back up to your top 3. This time around, it's a 2:03.7 from Mr. Jordan Caruso. So a great effort there. Cooper on the grass and loses a little bit of time. He's going to really rue that mistake. We're looking at just 6 and a bit minutes left to go. You'll see into held corner. It's called held corner for a reason. Watch the steering input. Gets on the grass and bang! Quick lock of oversteer. Very cat-like reactions from Cooper Webster there. So great amount of skill to catch the car. But sadly, that is time lost and time that he cannot afford. It was Job Stewart, a 1/10 of a second faster than your race leader. And he was the fastest of your top 3 last time around. So Job Stewart trying to apply the pressure. I can't tell if it's going to be 3 laps to go or maybe 4, but I can tell you right now, Caruso definitely wants it to be 3.
Yeah, I think we'll be on probably the 4th last lap at this stage. It'll depend on when they get back around to the start-finish line. 5/10 of a second, the margin from first to second position. And Mitchell McIntyre, incidentally, still out there. Did not pit that time around, so remains on the circuit in position 4. Jackson Suzlin-Harlow grabbing another couple of spots as a result of that incident that we saw at Forest Elbow. He's now up to P6 is JSH and continuing to march forward. Won't take too much longer before he's applying the blowtorch to the back of Blake Purdy's car.
Absolutely not much time separating those two as Jackson makes his way through Forest Elbow and down onto Conrod Straight, but not close enough to make any move in the next little while. It's still this top 3 we have to keep our eyes on. We're looking at just under 5 minutes remaining, and that is going to be more than definitely still 3 laps to go in this race. Caruso now not looking quite as strong as he once was, of course. Put on pole by 2/10 of a second, so we know the lap speed is there, but maybe the tyre wear is not. We've seen Job Stewart in this Ferrari in multiple series. Think back to the Speed Cafe GT3 series. He ran a Ferrari in there for quite some time. He knows this car well, and that is another 2/10 of a second faster than your race leader. Job Stewart continuing to take time out. It was Cooper Webster also faster than your leader, but not closing at quite a rate to challenge in the next few moments. It will take Caruso and Stewart to really start fighting to allow Cooper Webster to really dig into this battle.
And Mitchell McIntyre finally comes into the pit, so the no-stop strategy that we were alluding to, not really an option tonight. He's found himself out of fuel with 3 laps to go, Mitchell McIntyre, so in for a quick splash to get that car through to the checkered flag. But look at this battle among the front runners. It's really condensed. It's only 5/10 of a second separating first, second and third at the moment. They are absolutely nose to tail as they head across the top of Mount Panorama. Even the slightest mistake and you'll lose 2 positions in the blink of an eye for our race leader, Jordan Caruso. It's a blockbuster finish. It's a flat-out sprint to the checkered flag for our front runners and 3 of our most talented sim racing drivers in Australia.
Was incredibly close with Cooper Allen almost rejoining right into the path of our leaders. If we get a look on board with one of these drivers, you'll see just how close. Cooper Webster especially. It was so close. I've seen some unsafe rejoins, and this is just sending. That was an unsafe rejoin if ever there was one.
I don't know if it was so much an unsafe or dangerous re-entry, or it was just that Cooper Allen was still finishing off having his accident there. Let's have a look at that. So he's already spun at McPhillamy Park, and I think it was just the momentum of the car that carried it back towards the racetrack. So no malice intended there for Cooper Allen, but a scary moment there for our race leaders. We're going to have 2 laps to go this time around, less than half a second separating 3 cars. Who wins it from here? I'm not brave enough to make a prediction, Bo.
No way, there is no money coming from me onto the betting table for this one. As you said, 2 laps to go. It's going to be 18 laps here at Mount Panorama, and we are now well and truly into darkness. It's 25-9 as the time here in New South Wales, Mount Panorama, and it's your top 3 neck and neck. It was Jordan Caruso, the slowest of the 3, Job Stewart, the middleman on lap times, and Cooper Webster, the fastest. So is Cooper going to be able to attack Job Stewart here? He's getting close. Looks at the inside, late on the brakes. Griffin's bend becomes Cooper's bend. He's up to second, Job down to third. Now, what can Cooper do against Jordan Caruso? And is Job Stewart just playing the long game here? Cooper almost not waiting around, thought about it at the cutting.
Wow, here we go. So we've got the most successful driver in Just Send It history. attempting to overtake a driver who's gunning for his first Just Send It race victory. So Cooper Webster, who started well down the order, as we said, a lackluster qualifying performance by his standards. He's made up for it in the race. He's charged his way forward, and he's now got just one car left to pass if he wants to take what would perhaps be the most memorable out of all of the victories that he's achieved in the Just Send It series. He's got a lap and a half in which to do it. Where do you think he's going to be able to make the passing move, Bo?
It's very tricky to say. Of course, Conrod, which we're coming up to now, is the longest straight on the circuit. It's where you got the most slipstream potential and where you're also at the highest speed and into a big braking zone at the chase. That's the likely one, but of course, Mountain Straight, just as likely. We've actually got Harrison Dengate on track just in front, producing all kinds of smoke as a distraction in the middle of the road. The driver's so lucky to avoid again. Webster up the inside of Caruso, turns to the outside of the chase. Battle of the late breakers, and Caruso holds on. Plenty of curb used. Webster with the corner exit speed. Side by side into the final corner. The white flag will be flying, but not the checkered. There's going to be one lap to go. That's a long way around the outside for Cooper Webster. Job Stewart wants to make something of this. Not close enough in the hell corner.
But he might be close enough as they head into the braking zone for turn number one. He thinks better of it, though. Tucks back in behind Cooper Webster. One lap to go. Mount Panorama. It doesn't matter what sort of cars, whether it's virtual or real life, or how long the race is, but time and time again, it throws up these mega finishes. We've got one lap to go. Could we see another race at Mount Panorama where the lead changes on the very last lap? Well, it's a distinct possibility at the moment. Jordan Caruso knows that he moves to the inside to cover off the attack from Cooper Webster heading into Griffin's Bend over the top of the mountain. We know how hard it is to overtake. We've seen Cooper Webster make moves at the karting tonight. He won't be able to do so this time around. From here on till Forest Elbow, you would have to say it's single file. So realistically, Cooper Webster probably has 3 overtaking opportunities left. Forest Elbow into the chase or into the very last corner at Murray's Corner.
Which one will it be, if any? You can see Cooper just closing and hunting and stalking the Evolution Racing Team Ferrari. Over the top and down they go for the final time. Late on the brakes, bumper to bumper. The checkered flag will be ready at the start-finish line. But this is a big run from Cooper Webster. Does he think about it? A Forest Elbow. You can see Jordan defending it heavy. They're all checking up massively. And in fact, the best exit there was from Jordan Caruso. That was the best case scenario for him. The worst case is Cooper is right behind him in the slipstream. Job Stewart is there as well. Job wants to attack Cooper. Cooper trying to attack Jordan. They're all condensing on one another into the final few braking zones of the lap. Side by side, 275 kilometers an hour. Late on the brakes. Contact. Door handle, door handle. Around goes Caruso, it's up and over! Job Stewart is going to inherit the race lead with a corner to go, and Cooper too far back. He's been so dominant this season, he's had so many wins, and to round off the season, it's another on the checklist for Job Stewart. It's victory ahead of Cooper Webster in second, and Blake Purdy will round out the podium, and there's only one way you could be feeling right now if your name is Jordan Caruso.
And that is absolutely gutted. He got within 2 corners of taking his first Just Send It race win, but contact, perhaps a bit controversial with Cooper Webster. Here's the replay of what happened, and it was Caruso who was on the inside. He was trying to take the defensive line. He clipped the curb, and that was what spat him back into the path of Cooper Webster. The 2 cars made contact, and unfortunately it was Jordan Caruso who ended up getting rotated off the circuit. Job Stewart, he was third as they headed into the chase. He came out in position number 1, and great awareness, great anticipation, and he picks up another race victory. He had already wrapped up the championship, as I mentioned, but that will be his 3rd race win in season 4 of the Just Send It iRacing series. And in terms of all-time race wins, that for Job Stewart will be his 4th career win as well. What an epic race, though. Mount Panorama, it never fails to deliver.
Absolutely. We turned the lights down, but we definitely turned the action up. That was fantastic. And we've got the race results up on screen, but boy, oh boy, we need more of those races because that was simply stunning and some of the best racing I have seen in Just Send It. Absolute credit to all of our front runners. And of course, we'll start that off with the eventual race winner by 0.4 of a second in Job Stewart. Cooper Webster would round things out in second. Blake Purdy rounding out the podium. How is Jackson Zuzlin-Harlow 48 spots from 52nd on the grid, comes home with a top 4 finish. Jay Cool in position number 5 with Andy Carey in 6th. Jordan Caruso, a very, very dejected 7th, I am sure, ahead of Tyson McAvoy, John Mullock, and Marcello Rivera, your top 10.
Back then to Emerson Harvey in 11th position, Kobe Williams in 12th, Lachlan Manif recovering to 13th position after some early dramas. Matt Morris, even despite all of the incidents that we saw him involved in tonight, still managed to salvage 14th position at the checkered flag. Ben Rothberg in 15th ahead of Josh Haynes. Mitchell McIntyre, that alternate strategy netting him 17th in the end. Cooper Johnston, Robert Crisdale and Aaron Shields completing your top 20.
And then we only end up with just 3 more cars on the lead lap in Eddie Beswick, Brendan Jenner, and Adam Camparelle in 23rd place. And then everyone else ended up a lap down with Josh Drage and Simon Francis, your top 25. Dan Hall, unfortunately an incident under safety car, ended off his night in 26th. Dylan Goulson in 27th. Harrison Dengate in 28th. And then we get into retirement territory, which there were plenty here in our 18 laps of Bathurst, with Cooper Allen and Mitch McLeod 29th and 30th respectively.
Yeah, a bit of carnage, wasn't there? Other retirements, lots of them to get through. Ryan Wood, Ivan Vantagiato, Simon Black, Mario Vartanian, Luke Crebin, Sam Dunstall, Thomas Hinz out of the race as well, Cohen Attard, David Hueso, and Ruben Goodall with that spectacular launch that we saw at the chase just before the safety car restart, not seeing the checkered flag tonight.
No, not at all. And another driver who was a big factor early on who didn't see the checkered flag goes to James Golding in 41st. Ryan Shooter in 42nd. Cody Bircher also qualified 3rd, ended 43rd. Zach Bates in 44th with Aaron Hindle in 45th ahead of Lockie Dalton, Adam Goins, Jackson Johnstone, Cooper Murray, and Jack Lemon, the top 50.
And that completes another week and another season of the Just Ended iRacing series. Some fantastic entertainment right throughout the series, but what a cracker of a way to finish it all off here at Mount Panorama. We'll be back for another season of Just Ended, of course. We'll no doubt take a break next week. Hope you have enjoyed all of the action. You've been watching it right here on the SimSpeed TV network. My thanks to my co-commentator, Bo Albert, Jay Kennedy in production behind the scenes, and of course the entire team from the Just Ended iRacing series in at the administration side of things as well. Hope you've enjoyed all of the action. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Lachlan Mansell. See you next time. Bye for now.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Oh. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?